Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you're listening from. My name is Althea Walters, and I am the host for the Focused and Fulfilled podcast. I am a productivity coach and a business coach with Blazing Beyond. But today in our podcast, I have a very special guest. Her name is Ann Visser. She is a coach, a speaker, and a trainer, and her company for Better Forever. And so be talking about staying focused on your relationship goals, and who better to do this than Anne, right? And so, Anne, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Althea. It's a pleasure to be here on the Focused and Fulfilled podcast. I'm really pleased to meet you, and I look forward. My favorite thing to talk about is relationships, so I'm excited.
All right, wonderful. So Anne, your company for Better or for Better Forever, um, focuses on relationship. We know relationships can be a journey for so many people. Sometimes, we go through the bliss moments, and other times we're into the valleys and then we climb up again on the hill. Tell me a little bit about the work that you do and how did you come to doing this kind of work?
Absolutely. So I have been equipping individuals and organizations for over 20 years, Althea, to help them communicate in a way that aligns with their values. Because when we communicate in a way that aligns with our values, we're happier with ourselves. We like ourselves better. So I am a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer with For Better Forever, which I co-founded with my beloved husband, Malus. And so I train, I coach, I teach in areas of communication and leadership and mindset and personal growth, but especially relationships. And so in the past 20 years, I've been training couples and individuals, women in particular, often come and say, he doesn't talk to me, help me. And so we work through how to communicate more effectively and
Yes.
how to work through conflict resolution. And I've had the privilege of teaching students and young people how to avoid falling for a jerk, which is a program that's actually written by Dr. John Van Epp, but I love the program.
Wow.
Yes, we're about to start again this week. And so I'm excited about that. It's a 5-week program. And I've had the opportunity to teach values-based leadership skills and principles with John Maxwell himself in Paraguay, which was the trip of a lifetime. And
Wow.
I've just had the privilege to go into our local jail and teach addicts in recovery and also in a home for addictions to help them change from the inside out, because that's real lasting change. And as well to teach them relationship principles and skills that will support their sobriety. And so I also have a membership for Christian women called the Sisterhood Journey membership. And there we focus on the 4 lanes of communication: God talk, self-talk, which is so important for our lives, right? The way we talk to ourselves. The people talk lane, which is about pivotal conversations and how do we talk more effectively with people, and the leadership lane as well. So, fun fact, Althea, Malus and I have been married for 42 years.
Wow. Great. Congratulations.
Yeah, and together with his family, we farm on a beautiful farm in Prince Edward Island in Canada, Eastern Canada. And I am the mom of 5 adult children and 11 beautiful grandchildren.
Wow. Congrats. That must feel amazing.
It
You
is
smile
absolutely.
so broadly when you speak about them.
They're
So
pretty
it's good.
special.
Yes. So you started a company with your husband. What triggered that?
Good question. So it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about equipping others to communicate, because we have had our own struggles in marriage, and that's why I do what I do. But we didn't start out that way. I was 15 when I met this young man. I shamelessly chased him. I just wanted a date. Just give me a date. And then
Well,
3
it
years,
worked out. It worked out.
it did. 3 years later, we married. And I still remember the photographer saying to us, I've never seen a couple look at each other the way the 2 of you look at each other.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were just crazy, crazy in love. And isn't that enough? Won't that take us
It
through?
is. Yes, it is.
Well, I was pregnant 1 month after we were married and very, very sick.
Mm.
And this is a tough way to start marriage. And then we
Mhm.
had 5 children in 6 years. And
Wow.
Yeah, and my husband was working very long hours. And so we had these external pressures pressing in on our marriage, like very busy farm life, and then children very quickly, and then not being well. So those are external pressures. But then we had these internal pressures because we were not communicating well.
Yeah.
We were not conflicting well. In fact, we both avoided conflict. And
Mm.
so we had something that looked like long, cold, silent wars until one of us it would build and build until one of us would explode. And so
Mm.
it created this emotional distance in our marriage.
Mhm.
And I have a friend that calls it creeping separateness, Althea. And I like that term because it feels like that. It feels like it just kind of sneaks up on you because you're so
Mhm.
busy doing life. And then all
True.
of a sudden you kind of look at each other. It's like, wait a minute, who are you? I don't remember who you are anymore because you're so
Exactly.
busy, right? But we weren't able to communicate what was happening until one night when I had reached the end of my rope and I said to my husband, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean you can't do this anymore?
Mhm.
And I said, I can't do marriage like this anymore. I said, we just keep hurting each other. We don't ever resolve anything. We fight
Wow.
about the same things over and over again. And
Mhm.
I'm so tired and I'm so hurt. Somehow that conversation landed in his heart in a really good way. And he started to share his heart with me, which I hadn't heard in a very long time because we were so busy. And it
Mhm.
takes time to hear each other's hearts. And so that night he shared his heart with me. I learned that he was not very happy. We said we're going to get the help that we need in order to become great again, to be better together. And so that put us on a personal growth journey and a couple journey to learn to communicate more effectively, to learn what we didn't know. There were so many skills that we didn't have that we needed in order to be well together. And so we wanted to get back to being that in love couple that we once were. And
Mhm.
as we were reading and practicing and applying, we started to get better really quickly. And we looked at each other and we said, we can't keep this to ourselves. We have to share this with other people because it works. It
Yeah.
was just so exciting to fall in love again. And
Mhm.
so we started very quickly to host weekend retreats and then courses. And we would bring the experts in and they would teach and train until we felt that we had our feet under us and we were able and ready then to do the teaching ourselves. And so 6 years ago, that was a nonprofit for many years. We gave it away. 6 years ago, I made it a business and brought my daughter on board. And my husband is our bookkeeper. And he just said recently, I need a raise.
Ah. It's a business, right?
It's a family business.
Yes.
And so that's why I do what I do. I'm so passionate about it because I know that if I can have these kinds of conversations, I am a peace-loving, conflict avoider, recovering people pleaser. That's
Mhm.
me, Ann Visser.
Mhm. That's
But
fine. That's absolutely fine.
I know if I can learn these skills, they're skills that anyone can learn. And I know that. And I have seen women change the dance of their marriage. And as they changed the dance of their relationship, their husband came along because they're good,
Mhm.
kind-hearted people. They came along too, and they learned the skills as well. And so it's making a difference in people's lives, but not only at home, but at work too, because we have conversations, important conversations every single day, whether it's at home or whether it's at work. They're transferable skills, which is what I
Yes.
love about them, right? So the
Mhm.
skills that I'm learning at home, they work at work as well. And
Mhm.
so because of the commitment that we made to each other when we got married, we said, if we need help, we're going to go for help. And now when I work with pre-married couples, I say, when you need help, come to me for
Ah,
help.
yes.
I think there's always a time when we're going to need help in one way or another. And
Yes.
sooner is always better than later.
That is true. Sometimes you wait until it's too late and then, it's so bad. So it takes such a long time to recover. But Anne, what a beautiful story in terms of how you started, what triggered for you and you were going through some struggles. You spoke about the external pressures and the internal pressures. And this is something that we have to be so aware of because there are so many different triggers for us. We're dealing with life. We're just going through life autopilot most of the times. We forget who we are in the marriage. We forget who we need to be for each other. And so it's really important that we find a way to come together and deal with those issues that, will arise. It's not if, they will arise, right? But you said a few things. You mentioned that you took the time to share what was on each other's heart.
Mhm.
And that part of it is really important in terms of, understanding what's going on for each other. Sometimes we can't read their minds, right? We think, we may know, or they think they can, we can read their minds, but we can't. So we have to take the time to listen. One of the I was hearing coming out was the communication piece. That is such a challenge for persons in relationship or even casual relationships, right? But tell me, why is it so difficult to read this communication piece for couples?
I think it's really difficult communication because I think number one, we don't want to hurt each other. And so we
Yeah.
don't say important things that need to be said. It could be as small as, I don't like this dinner that we made tonight.
Yes.
And then it's served over and over and over and over again. And you continue not to like it, but you're not being honest about your flavor, your tastes, and it's so simple, right? But knowing is such an important part of relationship. I need to know you in order to love you. And if I don't know the people in my inner circle, especially, how can I truly love that person? My husband had a really bad day a few weeks ago. It was a personnel issue, and that can bother him more than anything else at work. And I said to him, "Oh, you're having such a bad day. What do you need today?" Good question, by the way. What do you need today?
Yes, what do you need?
Yeah, he said to me, he paused and he said, "I just need a cherry pie right now."
Yeah. Wow.
There was nothing I could do as a personnel issue at work, right? But this is an inside joke for us, Athalia, because he went to school for 2 years away, but he came home every weekend. He would drive home because he had a girl back home. And every weekend I would make him a cherry pie without fail.
Wow. You are
That
still being consistent, right?
So when he said that, as soon as he said that, I smiled because it took both of us back to good, happy memories about
Yes.
when he was coming home on purpose because he had a girl at home, and I was welcoming him, in a way that I knew how to welcome him at that time. It was with a cherry pie. And so when he said, "I just need a cherry pie right now," it was like practicing. It was like practicing each other's knowing, right? Bringing us back into what we know about each other and what we remember and those good memories. It's really important to take the time. And I think number one, we're really busy people as well. Like number one, I said that we don't want to hurt each other, but number two, we're really busy. We keep ourselves busy, and we think that love should just be okay without
Yeah.
really nurturing it. And it just doesn't work that way. What you nurture will grow. And so if we nurture love and kindness and gentleness and faithfulness, by the way, that's something we can nurture too, commitment and faithfulness. If we nurture those things in our marriage, those things are going to grow in our marriage. If we don't nurture those things, they don't grow. If we nurture disconnection, if we nurture avoiding conflict like we were, that's going to grow. And by the way, it's not just that grows. When we avoid conflict, resentment grows. Right. We start to get a little bit more resentful because isn't this worth fighting for? Am I not worth fighting for? And then we start to get resentful because we're also not saying the things that we need to say. And when we don't do that, there gets to be this little thorn in our inside that every time they come close to that, it hurts. And it's like, just stay away from that. Like, you're hurting me. Every time you touch that, it's hurting me. But we don't ever have that pivotal conversation that really talks about the real problem, which is what we did on that night in our farm truck outside our favorite restaurant. It was supposed to be a date night. And here I was saying, and I was saying to him, I can't do this anymore. But it was a real, honest, vulnerable conversation where then he felt safe to be vulnerable then with me. And so that mutual vulnerability and that mutual kind honesty was what we needed to disrupt what wasn't working. So we could then start and learn new skills in communication and conflict resolution.
Yeah, wonderful. So I heard, you saying, we don't want to hurt each other's feelings, so we don't really communicate, right?
Mm.
And sometimes we're just too busy, and so it's just going and going and going. But it's so important because that's such an important skill and tool that we need inside our relationships. And as you say, if we don't nurture it, it won't grow. And if we look at it from the concept of farming or gardening, every garden needs a gardener, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, if you don't garden and do what you need to do in that garden, then there are gonna be weeds, then there are gonna be so many different things that are gonna come and stifle the relationship or impact. So we must pay attention to nurturing the things that we need inside of our relationships to make us better forever, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And by the way, that company name For Better Forever,
Mhm.
we called it that because when we started learning new things, we started to have these conversations with our children around the table. And so often we would talk about relationships around the dinner table, and our kids were learning with us. And so we realized that the changes that we were making were impacting our children, that would actually stand on our shoulders and they'll do better
That
than
is
we
true.
did. And then I believe that our grandchildren then will stand on the shoulders of our children. And so, that for generations, it will continue to get better if we make those good choices to nurture, as the gardener, to nurture our relationships.
Wonderful. I love the name, by the way. It's great. It resonates with me. If can you share with me probably two strong lessons that you would have learned along this journey the
Yes.
path that you took?
Absolutely. So, one of the first lessons that I needed personally was
Mhm.
to be able to, I call it the first C of pivotal conversations, is check emotions. So,
Mhm.
I was so used to burying what I was feeling and what I was thinking that if my husband, and he does many times, ask me, "So, what do you think about that?" Or what do you think we should do? And I would say, "Oh, whatever, if he would ask me, how are you feeling? Like, I didn't take the time to think about that today. Let me think about that a minute." And I had buried that so deeply that I needed to uncover and learn the skill of being able to identify my internal world, to be able to
Mhm.
take like an internal temperature of my internal world. Like, what am I feeling today? And because if I cannot share those feelings with him, he will not feel emotionally connected to me.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the very first lessons that we both needed to learn. We learned that there are different levels to communication,
Mhm.
and the upper levels of communication are facts, opinions. I'm sharing my opinions with you now, and you're sharing your opinions back with me, Althea. And so
Mhm.
that's like an upper level. If we're going to go deeper, we're going to start to share feelings and needs. Those are the deep levels. And so in our intimate relationships, we want to go there. We need to be able to express what I'm feeling and what it is that I need right now. And in fact, I remember the very first time that I recognized, oh, this is important. I need to be able to do this more. When I said to him, I had had a bad day with our kids. I was standing in our kitchen and I looked at him and I said, "I just need a hug right now."
Yeah.
And he got up from the chair and he walked over to me and he put his arms around me and he held me.
Mhm.
And I was in disbelief. I was like, "You mean it's this easy? All I need to do is ask for what I
Ask
need?"
for it. Yeah.
But that takes us to the deep levels of communication. And so that skill of being aware of our internal world so that we can then express it to our most important people is
Mhm.
so incredibly important. The second lesson that I learned
Mhm.
in communicating was the ability to be able to listen. I'm
Yes.
not naturally a good listener.
Mm.
And so I needed to learn how to put my own thoughts on pause
Mhm.
and just rest to hear to hear, to understand what the other person is saying.
Mhm.
And this is a skill, and the more we practice it, the better we get at it. And by the way, coaching is all about listening.
Yes, it is.
It's all about listening and being able to hear what is being said behind the words. And so coaching was just an incredible program for me to enter into, to learn. And those skills, again, very transferable, because when you're at work and you feel that somebody has heard you,
Mhm.
you'll go to the ends of the earth for that person when you know that they
Yes.
care about you, and maybe they're going through a rough patch, maybe they need you to pull a little more weight at this time, but you'll do a little bit more because you know they really care, because they've listened to you.
Mhm.
Listening and love are so close, they're almost indistinguishable to the average person. They speak the language of love, listening.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's just an incredible skill that we can all learn, that's transferable from whether we're at home or whether we're at work as well.
Mhm. Yes. Lovely. So those two that you shared with us, the check your, check your emotions. How many of us just don't check our emotions? We want to go through it. Just say what we need to say, do what we need to do, and you should listen to us, without checking our emotions and saying, where do we step back, etc. And do we need to probably express it this way at this point in time? So that was good. And of course, the biggest struggle, listening. Not many of us know how to listen because we want to be heard first. And so that is the one that I know that needs a lot of grooming, right? And we have
Yes.
to build up that skill in terms of listening. But those are some good tips, in terms of how you navigate and go through relationships. But in terms of staying focused on your relationship goals, tell me a little bit,
Yes.
what would you share with us about staying focused, how to stay focused on your relationship goals?
Number one, we need to know what the goal is. What is the goal of I love to ask couples, what's the goal of your marriage? Nobody
Yeah,
knows, Althea. Nobody knows what the goal of the marriage is. What's the goal of your marriage?
that's a very good question. Now
Like,
I'm going to think about that.
what's the point? Why are you in this marriage? What is the point
Mhm.
here? Um, for me, the goal of marriage is connection. And so
Yeah,
now that I know that's my goal, it's okay. So how do I build connection today into our marriage? So we just had lunch together. It's something that we make a point of doing. It's a point of connection. And so it's a moment in time to catch up with one another. How was
yeah,
your morning? What's happening in your afternoon? That's that knowing part, right? So when I can know a little bit and have these points of connection, because that's my goal, then I'm really hitting my goal and I'm focused on what it is that's going, how am I going to take 100% responsibility for me in this relationship to hit that goal of connection today.
mhm,
And so I think about them as points of connection. So in other words, this morning when we were both leaving for work, we had a moment together where we gave a kiss goodbye, and I asked him, "What's on your day today? What's
mhm.
happening? What's going on in your world today?" And then I can check back again at lunchtime. So how did it go today? And those are
Yeah,
moments of connection that are really important. How important is it? Doesn't it make you feel good when you tell your girlfriend, I have this really important appointment today? Or can you think about me today? And then they swing back around later in the day and
that's
say, how did
right.
that go today? How was that for you? That means something, right? That's love. There it is right
Yes,
there. And
yes.
so creating those moments of connection to stay focused on that goal of connection is incredibly invaluable. In fact, Dr. John Gottman calls them 5 magic hours,
Mm.
not because they're magic, but because we need time in a week to connect, to maintain that connection. If we don't get it, we need to find it somewhere. So
Yes.
my husband, for example, we have these busy seasons. He's a farmer. We just
Mhm.
finished harvest here. He worked 15 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Minimal moments of
Almost.
connection, right?
Yes, yes.
So I steal Sunday away for us. So I
Lovely.
don't make plans with anybody. I
Mhm.
don't plan to do anything. I plan to spend the day with him so we can catch up on our 5 magic hours.
Yes. Mhm.
And so, life happens, things happen, but I think to be aware of, oh, I am intentionally walking out to the door here to greet you right now because I'm
Mhm.
happy to see you home. By the way, I was dog sitting my father's dog, this
Mhm.
little Lapsapso.
Mhm.
And every single day that my husband would come home, this dog would race out to the entryway, wagging his little tail and happy to see him home. And I thought, dog, you are putting me to shame.
Correct. He's showing you up.
He's showing me up. So we need to be aware if we're missing out because we're really busy, how are we going to get those hours
Mhm.
back
Mhm.
in order? So they're going to be in greetings, they're going to be in partings, they're going to be maybe in a date night, a longer period of time, or a day date. I love day dates, Athalia.
Right.
Yeah. But to gain that time so we can stay in the know with each other. We talked about how knowing is so important at the beginning
Mhm.
so that we can nurture our
Mhm.
relationship as a garden and stay in the know with one another to focus on connection
Mhm.
within. So one of the questions that I like to ask, and this is a kind of an extra tip, is my husband loves to ask this question of himself: is this going to be helpful? So if I say this thing here, is this going to be helpful? Now, maybe it's going to be a really hard thing that we have to say. When you said that earlier to me today, I've been
Mhm.
thinking about it, and it hurt because you kind of tapped into something from my past.
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah.
going to be helpful? It's going to be hard, but it's going to be helpful.
Mhm.
Because our people need to know who we are,
Mhm.
and they need to know that pain from the past so that we can connect then deeply. So I can then care about that thing, that pain from the past.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. So I love those tips, Anne, in which are to help you stay focused on your goals. Finding out what is the goal, because sometimes we're in relationships, we need to know what is the goal. That was such a powerful question. And will this help? Will this thing help? And I like that because I think sometimes after you get into a relationship, you miss those important steps, important practices that you should be taking to help you stay on track and to help you maintain what you have. And of course, as you spoke about, the goal is connection. Then if the goal is connection, what is it that you are contributing to that goal? What is it that you will be doing to hit that target? It's a goal, so you have to hit the target. So what will you be doing to hit that target? So I like that. And you have shared so many things with us that really opened my eyes and my thinking in terms of how we should really be looking at our relationship. And of course, all of us, go through different phases, and there are sometimes struggles and challenges, but there is room for having a blissful relationship, a happy marriage, a happy relationship. And so those tips that you shared with us, into each other's hearts, communicating, stepping back, checking your emotions, hearing each other, then, nurturing what you want to invest into that relationship, you have to nurture it. So I am very grateful for you sharing with us today. I really learned a lot, and I know my audience will benefit. So Anne, how do we find you?
Yes, well, I have a free resource to share with your people if I
Oh,
can, Ophelia.
wonderful.
Yeah. So we've been talking about a pivotal conversations. They're just so important for every relationship. And so
Mhm.
maybe your people have been thinking about the next pivotal conversation that they need to have. So this is a 7-day challenge to help you get ready for your next pivotal conversation. And each day you'll receive a short video and then a simple action step that you can take
Mhm.
to prepare for your next pivotal conversation. So you can go from not knowing how to approach it or what to say to knowing exactly what it is that you want to say, and you feel ready and confident going into that pivotal conversation. And so that 7-day challenge, you can go to forbetterforever.com/challenge. So that's
Mhm.
the numerical number 4 better, numerical number forever.com /challenge. And that really is the best way to stay in touch with me, because then you'll be signing up for our email list as well, which is called the Tuesday Brew with Ann. And I share weekly communication tips that to help you communicate in a way that aligns with your values.
Okay, wonderful. So we got that, and I will include the information in the show notes. But and it was such a lovely time that we spent together. I really enjoyed the conversation, just listening and learning from you. And I know that you would have impacted my audience in such a powerful way today, because sometimes we really don't pause to think about what do we really need to do for a relationship to maintain and sustain it, instead of waiting until it's too late for us to kind of try to get back together. So good to have you. Congrats to you and your husband. Such a wonderful business model. I love it. And of course, we know that, there are persons who really would want to be a part of what you have to share. So of course, the information will be there so that they can contact you. So any last tips, Anne? Any last statement?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me here on the Focused and Fulfilled podcast, Althea. It's a pleasure to meet you. And you, by the way, are an excellent listener. So
Thank you.
model Althea here. She's doing a great job. So, and just a pleasure to be here with you today. So thank you, Althea.
All right, thank you so much. So again, my audience, my guest today was Ann Visser. And so this is the Focused and Fulfilled podcast. And thank you so much for joining us again. Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you're listening from.